Well, with me now, the journalist and broadcaster Lesley Riddoch and writer and activist Vonny Moyes, who both support Scottish independence. And on the pro-union side, we have the former Labour MSP, Graham Pearson, who leads the pro-UK campaign group Scotland in Union, which launched today, and Stephen Daisley, who's a columnist for the Scottish Daily Mail. Lesley Riddoch first. A third of SNP voters backed Brexit. Might they desert independence if the campaign becomes all about remaining in the EU?
Well, I mean, there's a big debate to be had, actually, about the EU, because there's a halfway house called the EEA. It's what Iceland and Norway are in. They pay to have access to the single market, but they don't have the common fisheries policy or the common agricultural policy.
Yeah, but that relies on Westminster tangoing with you, doesn't it?
Well, actually, if you're an independent country, you could decide which route you wanted to take. And the point is that at the moment, that's why I think Nicola Sturgeon has been so insistent on trying to get a deal that allows access to the single market, because that's the important bit for Scotland. It allows the trade, it allows the freedom of movement that we need, because we need immigration here. So all of that could be an attractive cluster, but technically it would allow you to get away with not having some of the policies that people find difficult about the EU.
Stephen Daisley, are some pro-union voters sufficiently pro-European that they might actually switch to independence?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, or rather the 51% question. If Nicola Sturgeon can get people to do that, that is how she can win. I think Nicola Sturgeon's thinking is that there will be a greater loyalty amongst some people to the single market of the EU rather than the single market of the UK. The problem being that 4 times of Scotland's trade is done with the UK single market. And so you're not just asking a question of heart, you're also asking a question of head at the same time.
That's the problem. I mean, can you answer that point on the trade? I mean, do you worry about the economic instability, even though you backed independence last time?
I do, and I'm coming from this having been a yes voter last time, someone who was freshly politically franchised and who really got behind the campaign. But now, my politics were quite inchoate at that time, and I feel that over the last 3 years they've really matured in some way. And I think that now is the time that even as a yes voter and someone who's really pro-independence, we need clear economic arguments, we need a clear case. It's not a hearts and minds job anymore, it's facts and figures, and I think that's true across the board because the context has changed.
And the unionists have got all the positive economic arguments, haven't they? I mean, look at the oil price, for example.
They do, and I think the case for independence is that we have to show that even though it is about numbers, that we have to consider in what other ways we might be better off, and making the case for a growth nation as well. What's the potential that we have to tap into going forward?
Look, the independent supporters are up and running here. They've got all their arguments down pat. Graham Pearson, you launched today, but Is your party, Labour, ready? I mean, Jeremy Corbyn was pretty lukewarm in his support for the union, wasn't he?
Well, I don't know if the party is ready. I represent Scotland in Union, and that's a non-party organisation.
But you yourself are Labour?
I was Labour. I've left the Labour Party and taken a neutral stance in this.
But you want Labour to be part of that team, don't you?
We want everybody who supports the notion that we should maintain in Britain and be part of the United Kingdom to come on side. There seems to be an understanding amongst some of the nationalists that the only opinion that matters is those who want to be independent. Over 2 million people voted the last time, and there's still a very strong view there that wants to be heard. Scotland and Union will give them their voice and allow them to be heard to say, we don't want a referendum, we were promised once in a lifetime. The last time was too painful. We shouldn't be going there again.
Stephen Daisley, I mean, you've heard these two ladies have got their arguments up and running. Graham, not even sure that Labour's ready. Is the Unionist campaign ready? The
Unionist campaign had better get ready. I think behind the scenes there will be preparations being made, but I think that they have to strike early. It's true, whether it will be called Yes or Leave, we're not sure what the question will be, but the pro-independence side is up and running. It's got a campaign, it's got a website, it's doing fundraising, and the Unionist side cannot afford to be complacent this time.
Can I say, this isn't about political parties and politicians. This is about real people. And real people need to come out. We've got a silent minority in Scotland who need to be heard.
But they can't lead the campaign, though, can they?
No, they can't lead the campaign.
So who's going to?
And we'll find people who will come forward. But communities will come forward and help us.
But that isn't important. I mean, sure it is. I mean, we're all sitting here as non-political party people, but there is a big difference, a couple of big differences from last time. And one of the big differences is that no one could be confident that there could be a Labour government for years, perhaps even decades to come. Last time round, it was the familiar face of Gordon Brown and Alistair Darling, Scots, that led the cause. And this time round, it's not that. So there's quite a change in perspective for people.
The problem, though, with that argument from Lesley, and I do accept it to some extent, is that the flip side is also true, that it's unlikely that we're going to see another government other than the SNP at Holyrood anytime soon. And so the SNP and indeed Nicola Sturgeon has become much more divisive now. So it's much easier for the Union side to say a vote for independence is a vote for long-term government by the SNP.
Beyond that, I thought as well that, the no vote last time was a vote for maintaining the status quo. There is no status quo to maintain now. Change is the inevitable constant. So it's on balance which is better, which is most likely going to give us the most control and the ability to maintain things that are best for ordinary people.
Vonny, you've written about how bitter the campaign was last time. I mean, give us a flavour of how little you want to go back to that.
To be honest, I've spent the last 3 years trying to knit bits of my life back together. Lots of my friends and family are no voters. And as much as I believe in independence, I allowed yes to get in the way of friendships, family, relationships. I've got no desire to do that anymore. But I don't think this is about division. It's the fact that we have got to be a nation together on the other side of this vote. So the campaign can't be yes and no. It can't pit us against each other. It's what's on offer for all of us on the other side.
Lesley, it is going to be divisive, isn't
it? But I mean, that's because there is an inherent division of opinion. It's not that the independence vote is stoking it up. It's that it's allowing that division that exists to be manifest. And can I just say, I did not have a terrible independence campaign. I have not had massive arguments. My late mum voted no. That's fine.
I don't think that truly reflects the reality out in the street. There was enormous division, and there was a lot of stoking of emotion on both sides. I'm not saying it was a one-sided argument.
Was there, beyond a couple of eggs thrown at Jim Murphy?
No, I saw people in the public street white with fear and shaking.
You're an ex-cop. You're an ex-cop. Who was arrested? What convictions were there for any violence?
I have no idea, but you know yourself, police won't become involved in political argument. But people did suffer, and to say they didn't would be wrong.
I would love to carry this on. The argument is up and running. We'll continue it off air, but that's all from me in Glasgow. Back to you, John.
Kathy, thank you. She helped to write the Code of Conduct, but then broke it. Now the Bank of England's Deputy Governor, Charlotte Hogg, has resigned after she failed to declare that her brother worked for Barclays. Ms Hogg apologised to MPs after it emerged that her brother's job could come into conflict with her regulatory work. She said it had been an honest mistake, but as our business editor Siobhan Kennedy reports, the Commons Treasury Committee accused her of a serious error of judgment.
She's a gilded member of the British establishment, a high-flying financier who rose to the top of the Bank of England and was even tipped to become the bank's first female governor. But today, Charlotte Hogg's fast track to success came to an abrupt end after she was forced to admit she hadn't complied with the very code of conduct that she had written. It was a routine parliamentary hearing to rubber stamp her appointment as Deputy Governor, one of the most senior roles on Threadneedle Street, with a seat on all the bank's key decision-making committees.